Hiya Chris, lovely to meet up with you and do some further work on your game. Things are coming on nicely, and what we had to talk about this time was really tidying up the takeaway. What we see here at the start of your session is the hands are trying to work inwards more than they did before, but unfortunately the club is rolling under plane during the takeaway. Whenever the club works under plane during the takeaway and sets quite flat, it's got to steepen quite dramatically during the downswing, and despite your best efforts, that lead arm still starts to drift out as a byproduct of what's gone before. As a result, the neck of the club is presented to the back of the ball, which invariably can lead to a shank with an iron, or if you're hitting a driver, you can hit out the heel and impart quite a lot of left to right curve on the golf ball. Making that sort of move, if we happen to hit the centre of the club face, there's a good chance we're going to pull it straight left. So I really needed to tidy up the takeaway from setup to waist level. And what we talked about was a few different things, particularly the fact that the club and the hands are both tracing a circle. If viewed from above, the circle that the hands trace is much smaller than the circle that the club traces. As a result, if both things move away at a steady rate, the club would never match up with the hands unless there's been a little bit of independent rolling of the left hand. Now, we can handle a little bit of rolling, but we don't want it to be excessive, as we see on the far left. Now, in your case, because of the tendency to roll the club too much in and under plane, we'd want to feel that there was no rotation. So we don't mind it rotating, but we want it to do it later in the swing. So depends who it is, you know, each player will be different, but in your case, we don't want the club rolling under. So the feel we're trying to create is more what we see here. We'd want the hands to move inwards just slightly more, but this was sort of relatively early in the piece where we were just trying to get a feel for the club, you know, never coming under into sort of this area during the backswing. We don't want that club getting into that position like you see on the far left. So the feel at this point is to keep the hands in and the club out. When you do that, you start to see some subtle differences in the way your shoulders work as well. The lead shoulder working down and in a little bit more, shoulders not as flat. The forearms also stay closer together. They don't separate quite as much. The repositioning of the elbows leads to other things during the backswing. So that's the feel during the first sort of the early part of your lesson, trying to get a feel for moving that in. We then started to develop that feel a little bit, and as we worked more, this is towards the end of your lesson, you start to see that as we take the club back to about waist level, now there's still a little bit of roll on that club, but it's not rolled under quite as much. So what we were saying is this swing here on the right needs more of this putting into it. So this swing here is just not functional. We can't make that work. It's too erratic. This swing here on the right was producing some really nice shots. You can see straight away the lead arm is coming in a little bit more than was happening before. The elbows have not separated as much as before. The shaft sets a little bit steeper than we were seeing before. When the left arm's parallel with the ground, it's angled inwards a little bit more than it was previously. And again, the club, a little bit out the heel on that one, but certainly nowhere near as much out the heel as it was before. So that on the right is not the finished article, but we're moving in the correct direction. So what we've got to keep doing is putting more and more of what we see in the centre into that swing. Now, again, what would I like to see ultimately with this swing? Well, what I'd like to see, and we actually got there during your lesson, is we moved the hands in more so that they were on the red plane line. The club as a result would come in more as well, without you doing that independently, so no rolling. That would happen by softening the right arm, softening the wrist just a little bit. So again, moving back to this one, if the hands were to come in a little bit and the club was to go out a little bit, we'd be looking much more like we see with Charlie Wee. I'm just going to bring that footage up for you, just so you get a nice clear picture of what we're trying to achieve with your golf swing. Much improved though on the first sort of couple of lessons. Like I say, the idea of getting the hands and the arms in, that's starting to pay dividends. And the other thing that you're much clearer on now is the way the club face should work through impact, and I can tell that by the conversations we've had when in the shop. So hands and arms moving in, right arm softening a little bit more, no need to keep that straight during the takeaway. Hands working in, club working in. So again, if we take a little look at this middle footage, it's very similar to what we're seeing Charlie demonstrate on the left. It just needs the arms and the hands to come in a little bit more, which would in turn bring the club in a little bit more as well. And from there we'd be in a good position to continue to the top in the appropriate manner. So we need more of what we see in the centre, putting into the swing that you see on the right. But in the centre, the drill, we just need the hands to come in a little bit more and the right arm to soften more, as per Charlie on the left-hand side of your screen. If you have any questions, feel free to pop in. Just ignore that line. My computer's having a funny moment. If you've got any questions, feel free to pop in the shop. We can have a chat things over, but I think, based on what you were saying last time you were in, things are coming on nicely, and it's just a case of getting more and more clarity as you move forward with your golf swing. Good luck.